Hello everyone and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel and today I'm joined by my wayfinder, Tanner Dykstra, and today we're here to talk about Moana 2, the long-awaited sequel to the smash hit of last generation. Tanner, we've seen Moana 2, but if the people have seen Moana 2, they should talk to us about this movie in our Discord server, which has a link in the description, and of course, leave comments on this video about your thoughts on Moana 2. Tanner, get into it.
Okay. Tucker, before we recorded, I said I'm going to try and keep a level head and an even keel about this one.
Okay.
I
respect that.
Thank you. I did not care for Moana 2, really in the slightest, but we'll get into perhaps some nuance about the film. And for me, a lot of my complaints will echo, if you cast your minds back to November 2023 when we reviewed Wish.
Sure.
I feel like a lot of my complaints are the same. Now, this is a better movie than Wish. Don't get it twisted.
Okay.
But I don't know. I just had a very odd experience watching this movie, and it doesn't happen very often, but it always happens with movies it happens with movies I always tend to dislike, where I was not involved in the story at all.
Sure.
I was blatantly aware of how this film was positioned as a corporate object, the origins of this film, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and generally that was the overriding feeling I had, was that it didn't feel like a logical or necessary or well-earned sequel necessarily. It felt like, I don't know, what can we hash together that can vaguely imitate the first film, but really, for me, a significant downgrade in every single category.
I agree with the last part. Moana is, I think, far and away my favorite Disney animated film. It's certainly the only one where I've ever enjoyed the songs. I'm very cynical when it comes to Disney songs, and so most classic Disney movies with a bunch of songs, I'm like, yeah, I just don't care. I just don't care. But there was something about Moana in 2016 and the lyrics to the songs and the colors that they used of this like nice teal and green and orange. I'm like, Moana is my favorite Disney movie without a shadow of a doubt. And so I was just excited to be in this world again. And I agree that it's a step down in almost every way. I think it's got some pacing issues. I think there's some jokes that aren't funny. I think the songs are very hit or miss. But at the end of the day, I went in pretty cynically with, we have the knowledge that this was a rebirth project from a Disney Plus show, and it does feel in that way like we need to fill a slot. We're not exactly confident in this, but let's just put it out because we need something to hit. And maybe this is just how occasionally easy it can be to warm the cackles of my heart, but as the credits rolled on Moana 2, I had a smile on my face, and I was like, wait, that was a lot of fun. And so I really actually did enjoy Moana 2. I do think it's worse, and I will talk about the elements where I do think that there are some significant criticisms, but all in all, I find the world of Moana to be so visually engaging, and I find Moana herself as a character, her dynamic with the people around her, to be easily the most compelling Disney character, that I was like, I will watch anything that Moana does.
Including a Disney Plus series?
No, I would not have done that.
Well.
A man has limits. But I really did enjoy it. I have some issues, but it's just I think it's a straight down the line good family movie.
Sure. So let me talk about my experience watching, as I alluded to a little bit when I started. It happens every so often that I'll watch a movie, there's really no rhyme or reason to it other than I end up not liking the movie, where I just am completely unmoored. And that sounds like the complete opposite of your experience.
Yeah. Well, I was able to become moored, because I was kind of unmoored at the beginning, and then I got ingratiated.
I think for me, it's often an issue, and it's an issue in this film of a poor onboarding, and perhaps they didn't feel like they needed to put a lot of effort into that, since this is a sequel to the most streamed movie on Disney Plus of all time, hands down, period, nothing barred. And I don't know, I feel like the first 15, 20 minutes of this are very rushed, very slapdash.
Yeah, I would
of
agree
like,
with that.
okay, we got to get going on this adventure. Okay, she's back, she's looking for things, and there's lightning, and Maui's here too, except he's trapped somewhere. And also here's your like cast of wacky characters, and they're off.
That last part I definitely agree with. I was surprised to learn that this is an ensemble film.
They were not in the marketing at all.
Yes. And the fact that she's like, okay, you need a crew. And so then she just like puts together a crew based on characters that we'd seen fleeting moments of in the opening song. And I was like, what the heck? But I personally think that they earned that by the end of the film, but I also do agree that the beginning feels a little bit rushed. I think that narratively, it's not the end of the world, that it's kind of a quick opening, because it all makes sense. I know that's not a particularly high bar, but I'm like, yeah, I can buy this. That she's now a wayfinder. She explores a lot. She's kind of become a hero. I kind of like that puts this different pressure on her. She's following in the steps of her ancestors and in a tradition of being a wayfinder that has been something that her people haven't experienced in many, many generations. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I can buy into this. I don't think either of the opening songs are particularly great, and I think that certainly pushed me away, which is, I think, again, a nice coin flip to the first Moana, where those two opening songs are, I think, some of the best Disney songs that have been written. And so I was certainly off edge, or I guess, no, on edge, probably.
On edge.
At the beginning of this movie, where I'm like, the lyrics of these songs aren't really doing it. Okay, I understand narratively, but who are these characters? Whatever. But honestly, and I had to, I wrote it down.
Okay, here we go.
The song, Nothing Could Be Better Than This. The first song as they head out onto the sea, and Moana's trying to get everyone to sort of bond together and enjoy the adventure, and see that there is excitement out there. I was bought in. I was like, okay, these characters are simple, but they fill their archetypes well. There's some good banter back and forth. Moana's filling an interesting role here, and I think that is easily my favorite song in the movie. I actually think the lyrics are pretty fun to that. The melody's very catchy. And they're on the ocean. The boat is like rocking back and forth, and they're like doing like little slapstick comedy bits. I'm like, no, yeah, this is just really fun. I think it had a rocky start, but that moment I was immediately bought in, and so I was in from there forward.
Sure, and I think that's obviously a key moment that you're like supposed to be bought into the premise, the conceit of the rest of the movie, which is these characters going on a seafaring adventure. And it just didn't happen for me. Yeah. I just found the characters to be quite flat and undynamic and a little bit very one note, I should say. I don't think any of them have really any nuance or arc to speak of. I'm even frankly confused about like what changes about Moana from the beginning to the end of this film as a character, outside of like a character tells her that there's always another way, and then she learns that there's always another way. And again, it's just a matter of fact for me that, like, I don't know, it feels poorly conceptualized of like, okay, where is she going to be at the end of the first film, and where is she going to be at the end of the second film?
Well,
as a character, not necessarily having changed or impacted the world or the world that she exists in, but like what changes about her necessarily.
Well, I think that what this movie does, and now it's been a long time since I've seen Moana. I've rewatched scenes and I've listened to the songs, but the broad strokes of that first film's plot and her character arc are kind of hazy to me, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm like,
sure.
if this film is retreading ground that I just don't quite remember, that's certainly possible. But what I see as the arc of this movie is her learning that, to the point of the get, allow yourself to like find a different way song and thing that's sort of told to her, is that she's very concerned at the beginning of the movie with how is she going to balance her own, and this is definitely something from the first movie, but I think it's a good continuation here, of now that she has this pressure put upon her, the idea that everyone is counting on her, is she going to be able to return home? She's wrestling with, and I think interestingly so, whether she should follow what makes her unique and her skills, or what has been set forth by the previous generations. Follow the path that's been set forward for you. Follow that the ancestor that she keeps seeing. Follow the like shooting star sort of thing that's in the sky. And the balance that she finds is yes, respecting and understanding the history of your ancestors and following the things that they have taught you, but allowing yourself the space to create your own way forward. And I think that that's a pretty solid theme. I think that ties in very well with her learning to be a leader, which is something that she's not particularly comfortable with because she hasn't done before by the beginning of this film. And the reason why I ultimately did end up enjoying the cast of wacky crew members is because I do think they serve a good purpose in giving her people to help bring together in a more specific way. This movie is, I think, a pretty mirror image of its large scope themes and its small scope themes, which is the goal of this movie is to find the island that will connect all of the tribes together of the ocean. But then also on a small scale in terms of the actual cast of characters that we're following, it's about bringing them together and being that home island, that rock that everyone can lean on and learn from. And I think that's a solid, simple but solid kids movie like narrative arc theme to build on.
That part is sound, I would say. That part holds water, as it were. But I don't know. To me, it just feels like that it's just too surface level, frankly. Like the thing with the crew that you're talking about. I already mentioned how I feel these are one-note, one-dimensional characters, and they don't like. It's not like they're super dysfunctional as a crew. They just kind of like, as you mentioned, kind of do like slapstick comedy when they're trying to operate the boat or whatever. Yeah. It's not like they have personalities that clash with one another necessarily.
That's definitely true. Yeah.
And for me, that's why it feels, and ultimately, like by the end of what's the name of the song again?
Oh, the boat song. Nothing better than this.
Nothing. By the end of Nothing Can Get Better Than This, I feel like okay, she solved the crew's problems, and now they're functioning together, and they've learned to run the ship together. And it's 20 minutes into the movie, and then with what you were mentioning about Moana's character specifically, again, I think that is a true reading of the film. But like, I don't think it comes to bear in especially interesting ways. Like the star explodes, and so she is sort of like not given a choice as to whether she wants to forge her own path following this thing or not.
Yeah, sure.
And then after that, she's just given a shortcut by the Bat Lady character.
Yeah.
She's just given a shortcut to like basically where they need to go, right?
Yeah. No. Yes. The whatever portal of the gods teleports them to the area. Yeah.
Which to me feels like a yada-yadaing of the script.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And then they get to where the island is, and we get our big, last 15-20 minutes of the third act. And her decision of her realization of there's always another way is that she can just swim down and touch the island instead of dragging it up, which to me is not an especially like revelatory moment for her character. It's just like a problem solution thing. It's not a moment where she has to like search inside herself and really come to bear with the preconceived notions she has about the past of the Wayfarers or whatever. It's just like, oh, I found a loophole to go get the thing that needs to happen at the end of the movie.
Yeah. That's just I think you're right. I think that a lot of the like getting us from plot point to plot point things are probably the weakest element of the pacing of this movie. I think that this movie should have been 10-15 minutes longer and included another sequence of them on an island exploring the ocean, interacting with something, because this movie gets to its third act really quickly.
It does.
And I've certainly found that to be my biggest issue with it, of like, oh, we're already here, and then we spend a long time in like a 5-stage fucking boss battle at the end of this movie.
With Nola?
That doesn't really matter because it's a cloud. It's not a character, which I think is another pretty significant flaw is that there's no now that there wasn't really like a villain the first movie, but
I think it's different though because the first film was obviously much more about Moana coming into her own, whereas again I feel like I'm reiterating here that she feels fully formed and not really transformed at all by the plot of this film, and because I also thought that the villain of the movie was gonna be the Bat Lady, who we should talk about, especially as it pertains to a little post credit scene here.
Oh, didn't stick around for that.
Oh well, Tucker, how are you gonna?
It was 11:30 at night. Here's a story.
Okay,
so I get out of the movie last night. I'm at the mall. I'm walking through the parking lot. I'm like, oh shit, I can't remember where my car is. And there's like this lamppost with like police lights on it that's like, you are trespassing, leave the area, you are being recorded. I'm like, brother, I just got out of the movie. It's 11:30 at night.
I was enjoying the night at the movies,
but it was just bizarre. I guess I've never been at the mall that late. But it was really weird. But I didn't stay for the post credits, so I have no idea what the post credits is.
I'll explain it to you when we get there. But do you want? Is there anything else you want to mention about like the end of this movie? I think that, granted, the part of the movie that works the best emotionally is when Moana does her sacrifice or whatever, and the row of children in front of me thought Moana had fucking died in real life, and she was not coming back. And Maui is singing to her, and she comes back, and she sees the ghosts of the ancestors. That is the part that is the best part of the movie for me. I think it really works, but again, will be a lot more impactful for me knowing that Moana did not actually die in Moana 2.
Of course.
If it was, if there was an emotional build up to that rather than just being a relatively well constructed scene unto itself.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think that, well, let's talk about the songs. Because there are actually very few songs in this movie.
There's like 6, maybe?
I don't think there's that many. I think there might be 5.
Yeah, let me pull up the Spotify.
Unless there's like one over the credits or something that I don't know about. But we get the song of her like returning to the island, and then there might be another one on Montanui before she leaves. But then there's Nothing Can Get Better Than This, which is again where I felt that the movie really picked up steam and like felt more cohesive. Because even though I do admit and say that one of my biggest criticisms of this movie is that the jumping from scene to scene feels pretty quick, I think that the movie does, as she gets off the island, start to flow very well. Like we're introduced to the next sequence pretty naturally, and something happens, and then we're pushed on to the next thing. But I enjoyed the ride of it's just kind of like a roller coaster movie where you're moved from plot point to plot point, and I did enjoy that. But then they run into the Kakamora, and they beat the giant clam, which, by the way, is awesome. That giant clam with all the eyeballs.
It's fairly cool, yeah.
It's pretty sick. And there's some slapstick humor with this like blobfish that sneezes.
Hey, listen, I have something to say about that goddamn blobfish. Don't you believe me?
And then when they're trapped in the clam, there's this whole adventure. And again, these sequences back to back of Nothing Can Get Better this song, where I felt all the characters were kind of having fun together, and I was enjoying like just the vibe of being on the ocean and this fun beat happening, into the Kakamora, and I like their little designs, and I think they have some fun little moments with the clam, which is cool, and then inside the clam, which I think is really, really visually interesting with all these sparkling lights and swirls and like giant colorful rocks and things. I'm like, well, what is the inside of this clam like? What the hell? But it's very visually interesting. And then there's the song with the bat goddess, Get Lost, which I think is the second best song in the movie.
That's my
really
favorite.
Like that song.
Yeah, that would be, if you asked me, gun to my head, gun to my balls, best song in Moana 2. A real hard-hitting question that you'd have to threaten my life over.
Yeah.
I would say Get Lost.
Yeah.
Just because I think the vocal performance of that is quite strong. I presume that is going to be, hang on, I had her...
look at the cast.
Auli'i Fraser, I believe is how you pronounce this woman's name. I think her vocal performance, if she's the one singing the song, which I assume as well, is quite good. And, it sounds different than all the other songs in the movie. It has a sort of like disco-y kind of vibe to it, which is pretty good. Generally, gonna say, it sounds like I'm sounding like a broken record here. Songs didn't do it for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. There are the two in the middle that I thought were solid. Or I liked. Actually, really, I enjoyed the two that I was mentioning. But I think that the opening songs are pretty weak, as I mentioned. And then, tell me if you disagree with this. You know who gets the shortest out of the stick?
Who's that?
One Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Because the downgrade from
You're welcome to
hang whatever the hell this was.
Can I get a I just looked at it.
Yeah, Chi-Hoo.
Can I get a Chi-Hoo?
That is the worst song in the movie. The lyrics are like stumbling over themselves. The rhymes don't make a lot of sense. I'm like, whoa. You're welcome is straight bars in that first movie. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, it's almost like Lin-Manuel Miranda is a very talented songwriter.
Yes.
And whoever they got for this cannot match the legendary songwriting skill of Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes.
Because they feel samey to me. They feel, especially with Maui's song, like a cheap imitation of like, well, we gotta have our "You're Welcome" moment in this movie. Yeah. We gotta have our "You're Welcome" for Maui. And it's like, I don't know, try something different. Like, don't try to just replicate what made Moana a success as directly. Like, try and find some interesting routes to develop it outside of that. And of course, I think maybe the closest they get is like Get Lost in terms of the songwriting. But again, even that's like, well, the first one had a villain song that sounded way different from all the other songs in the movie. So we should probably do the same thing here,
talking about Shiny?
Right? Yeah, Shiny.
Yeah, I like this. I like Get Lost way more than Shiny. I actually really don't.
I think they're about equivalent.
Sure,
but
that's fair enough.
Here's the thing. I know the tune of Shiny in my head.
Yeah.
I could not sing Get Lost to you right now.
Yeah. Mildly unfair equivalence, but fair. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to that for me for a lot of other things. And I understand, like you said, like the Moana songs have had years of cultural relevance to get stuck in my head. And I just listened to these for the first time last night. So not roughly equivalent, but I feel the same. You know, I didn't see Moana in theaters, so I can't speak to whether those songs were stuck in people's heads after they walked out of the movie. Yeah. I would assume so, and maybe that's the case here. Like you said, it is for you. You like the melody of a couple of these songs, but just not the case for me. Pretty flat in terms of the musicality of the film. And I looked. I think there's 7 or 8. Like I can't really derive out whether some of these are like sung by the characters or if they're just songs like in the movie. Because the very first song is not one that our characters sing.
True.
It's just kind of overlaid over the events of the opening of the film.
Yeah, there are a couple of those. There's one of those near the end as well, and then there's also like a reprise of
Beyond.
Well, there's like kind of a reprise of Beyond, but there's also from the first movie. It's not How Far I'll Go. It's
Finding the Way.
Yeah, we'll find the way. Yeah. There's like as like all the tribes are starting coming together. There's like a reprise. Oh wait. Hold on, no, this is the best song in the movie because it's from the first one.
Yes. On the note of the music, before we go on, hey Disney, hey, listen, pals. If you want to really convince me that the songs in this one are good, maybe stop invoking and metatextually revisiting or saying the names of songs from the first movie that are better.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times does Moana or somebody else say "How far I'll go" or "How far you'll go" in like the first 10 minutes of this movie? It was like. It's a good song. Stop reminding me of it because it's not going to be in this one. And then it kind of is at the end. But then, like, at the end of the movie, Maui says, "Hey, you're welcome."
Yeah.
I'm like, stop reminding me of the better songs in the movie.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little about the humor in this movie. Because
the humor.
Because it's another, like, hit or miss element for me. I think that most of it is simple and fine, and there's a couple moments that got chuckles. But... I want to give unlock your leash a little bit to sort of talk about the moments that annoyed you, frankly.
So again, like I said, I don't want to be in our review of Wish 2023, the film. I said, I don't want to get too mad and angry and up in arms over a movie that is like for kids at the end of the day, and I don't want to do that here. But let me say. There are jokes in this movie that really rub me the wrong way. I noted a couple in my little quippy letterboxd review of the film, in which I said jokes about fan fiction and the screaming goat meme in this movie. Time to throw in the towel for the whole company. Now I was being facetious.
Slightly exaggeratory,
but I really feel like again. That we're missing the boat and the heart of what made that first movie Moana special, which is that we weren't like relying on a crutch of like, hey kids, you get this one about fan fiction.
Yeah.
And even then, listen, I mentioned the blobfish earlier. When the blobfish does the screaming goat sound from like 2007 or whatever the fuck that was, I was like, who is this for? It is for the millennial Disney adult sitting in the audience. That's like, ha ha ha, I remember that.
I mean, kind of, but it's a funny, loud noise that gets the kids giggling. That's really who it's for. But I do think that I agree with this sentiment of them feeling like kind of cheap, simple like gags that to me, that is the part that's most clearly not written for theatrical release. This is more like where you're gonna put this on for your kids, and it's gonna get a giggle out of them and like keep them mildly entertained. Because most Disney movies, even the worst ones, don't really have that kind of humor in them. And this one, it has quite a few moments of that. And so I'm watching this and I'm like, because I to the filmmakers' credits, to the directors, to the editors, to the animators, in 15 years, it will be an interesting bit of trivia that this film was not initially intended for theatrical release, because it's, if you dig, I think you can feel some things, but it's a perfectly fine like movie in terms of like the script. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, I was actually like thinking on the way home, like, how would you split this up into like 5 or 6 episodes? I don't even know.
I think it was the first 3 episodes.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. And then, but I'm just saying, like, animation quality, like script. I'm like, for the most part, I'm like, yeah, it's a fine movie. Like it doesn't feel like super choppy in the way I was maybe expecting when we heard that initially. I'm like, how are they going to do this? And I think they actually did it surprisingly well.
Yeah.
That can't be easy.
No, of course not. And it's exaggerated, I think, to the degree of like this was a TV show. I think the rough story and like storyboards is kind of what I heard were initially set to like they laid it out to be a TV show, and then flipped it to be a narrative, 95 minute film or whatever. That being said, I did feel some choppiness. I shouted it out already, but like the God's Portal, what's it called? Was a moment where I was like, "Whoa, boy, this is a real like." I don't know. They get there, I guess, through a magic portal that a character gives them. A character that has no payoff in the rest of the film is just there to be essentially given the after credit scene. And Alex, I'll let you know what happens there. Like I set up for the third movie, is the post credit scene is they are, I don't know, somewhere, maybe in the clam or maybe not. I can't really tell.
Who's they?
The Bat Lady character who is Batangni, and Nula,
the Thunder God.
The Thunder God, yes.
The Storm
and
God,
he's there, and he's like, "Listen, you still have to do my bidding, Bat Lady." And
as
she's
a voice?
like,
"Okay,
yeah, he's a guy." It sounded vaguely familiar. I might have recognized him, but I'd have to look into the cast list for that.
Yeah.
But he's like, "Listen, you still have to do my bidding," and he's like, "Ooh, things are far from over. Things are just beginning, and I'm going to get my revenge on Moana and the humans."
Sure.
And he's like, "You just have to stick." He didn't say this, but it's essentially like, "Hey, I'll be back in Moana 3. Don't you worry about it."
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it.
Yeah. I think that you're right that the element of having the Bat Goddess character not have incredible relevance nearing the end of the movie is certainly the choice that like felt the strangest to me. I'm like, well, what? Like, I guess okay, sure, set up for the third one. Oh, all right. That's a little bit of a cop out, but whatever.
Yeah.
Because I was surprised to not see her come back near the end, because I thought that internally in the sort of like 2.5 sequences that she's in, I thought it was a perfectly fine setup. I think the character actually has really interesting animation. I thought the performance that was given, vocal performance, both singing and speaking, by the actress who's performing her, I thought was actually really, really good. And also the idea that she has sort of this intimidating presence that that both Moana and Maui sort of take as this, and also apparently her and Maui have like this history. Didn't really get into that, but that she seems like she's the villain, and then the fact that it's like she's also been trapped by this system, and that she ends up helping Moana sort of discover a little bit about herself. I thought that was a fine like subversion of the character archetype or whatever. But her not coming back for a third time, I was like, well, okay, especially because I didn't see the after credits. I was like,
yeah.
huh?
Worth noting, the Jermaine Clements crab also shows up in the end credit scene.
All right,
sure. He's the joke that ends it, because like there's a joke that ends it, and he's like, hey, I also don't like Moana. I'm working on a new song. It's about like crab legs or something like that. Yeah.
All right.
Yes. So he'll be back. So don't worry about that. To wrap it up. The D word came to mind for me during this film. DreamWorks.
Okay.
It felt DreamWorksy to me. Now, I know that we can throw some derisions across the bow to DreamWorks, but for most of our lifetime, they have been known for their, let's say, less than stellar animation output.
Sure.
And this film felt of that ilk to me. And, you know, DreamWorks has their standout films, of course, like How to Train Your Dragon or you know, whatever your persuasion might be there. But it feels, it doesn't have, like, the real emotional heart that we've come to know Walt Disney animation films have. And it felt, Moana 2 felt of a piece with a consistent lowering of the bar in terms of quality and baking time for these films. Sure. Basically, since like Frozen 2, it feels like we have been getting these films more and more consistently that it's like they either are confirmed from like behind the scenes stuff or feel half baked. They feel incomplete. And I know you said like the animation quality is on par for you. For me, it's not. For me, it's just not. There's a lot of times where I'm looking, especially at the backgrounds of these things, where it's just our characters set against, like, on a beach set against the water. I was like, the background is not dynamic. It is standing still, and it's just like a blue and gray gradient. And the water generally was like a big thing in the first one. It made that film feel alive and vibrant, and that just wasn't here for me in this new one. And I felt that way in a lot of the cases. Even like the character models feel a little bit smoother, especially when there's some people talking in like the foreground or off to the left of the scene, and somebody's just kind of like standing off to the right. I'm just like, my eye is drawn to them. I was like, why are you there? You're not really moving or emoting at all. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It felt of a significantly lower quality to me, and color me disappointed for Moana 2. I'm gonna give it a 4.6.
Fair enough. I will say that I maybe was not as focused on the elements that you considered to be lower quality, and I certainly might agree with you on a rewatch of like paying attention more strongly to those things, because the elements that I was most focused on, frankly, was the animation of Moana herself. The facial animations, especially, I think are top notch. I think that combined with Auli'i Cravalho's performance is why I want to be in this world. Why I find this adventure compelling is she is singing her heart out. She has so much emotion in the things that she's saying to people. She has good moments of comedic timing. Obviously, has a really good singing voice, and the animation quality of like the little facial tics she has and things, and the way that she like holds her hands as she's like stressed about something. I'm like, this is a really well realized character, and I am just compelled by her adventure because she has a strong personality. She's confident. She's adventurous. People like her. Like I fall.
I want to be Moana. I mean,
but that is it's an easy like, or it's a kind of a simple way to say like, yeah, okay, so the main character is really compelling, and that's why I like the movie. But I think that's pretty hard to do, especially in recent Disney movies. Strange World, Raya, Wish.
Yep.
The main characters in all of these movies are not particularly compelling, and then you get Auli'i Cravalho like singing her heart out and having amazing animation. I'm like on Moana. I'm like, this is the real shit. Like this is why she's my favorite Disney character.
Hey, listen, I can't wait for her to come back for the live action remake.
Yes, of course. But I still at the end of the day did enjoy it. I think the last act goes on too long. I think the first act is a little bit too quick, but otherwise, it was a fun ride of an adventure with some simple themes, some good animation, fun main character, and I had a good time and it put a smile on my face by the end of the movie. And as I finished it, I was like, okay, I'm okay with this making a lot of money.
Well, Tucker, I'm glad that you gave it the thumbs up so it can do that now.
But I don't have to be like frustrated, like the people are liking all these shit movies.
Bob Iger was sitting up in his ivory tower, being like, "Oh no, is Tucker Hazel gonna give us the thumbs up to make $1 billion? Oh man, oh geez." Yes, and the money starts raining down from the ceiling.
They're finally allowed to pull the money lever that lets all the money flow in.
That's right.
But I did like it, and so I'll give it a 7.3 out of 10. Sure. Good, solid family fun that I will recommend to people, and I think that generally people will enjoy. I mean, it actually has a pretty good Rotten Tomatoes score, which I was surprised to see.
I don't know what the audience is, but it's got like somewhere in like the high 60s, low 70s from critics. So people are liking this. My theater was jumping. I actually did end up going. I ended up going much actually later than you last night. But it was like 11:30 at night, and my theater was jumping still. So people are gonna go see this.
Thank you, everyone, very much for watching this thorough breakdown of Moana 2. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, of course, and subscribe to see more reviews in the future. Now, do you ever have an odd keel?
Yeah, I guess the opposite.
All right, Tanner.
Yep.
Point on the doll. Where is the keel on your body?
The keel is more of an interior thing.
Sure.
So what you want to do is you want to go up and in.
Ooh.
All right.
And then
there's
the keel.
Hang a sharp left. Hang a sharp left. Do a loop-de-loop.
Oop.
Go due north.
Oh.
And that's where your keel is.
Doesn't matter where you are. You have to go north.
Yeah, due north.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should say magnetic north. Go towards the magnetic North Pole, wherever that might be. It moves too, so you got to keep a sharp eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the keel?
It's the keel. Well, the magnetic North Pole does too.
Oh, I guess that's true because it's like the lava currents or whatever.
Yeah, the keel tracks to the magnetic North Pole, obviously, but you still have to take the other step to get there first.
Yeah.
And that's where we find it.